welcome to this month's article and an app, our Westcliff University Light Center Reading Club. This is our, I just want to welcome everybody. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm sharing my screen. As a reminder, this is kind of our general etiquette. This meeting is always a little bit less formal, but if you want to mute yourself until you're ready to talk, you could always unmute yourself, raise your hand, however it is. I do want us to talk, be in the chat, share ideas. That's really important. We are recording, so if you come off camera or if you, share some insights or ideas, just know that you are being recorded. Question, comments, you can use the chat box, and these slides and this recording will go out in the next PD to go newsletter, which is going to be a little bit. I think we haven't sent one yet, so it might be in this month's. Might go into next month. I'm not quite sure. Just so you have that information there. So as you know, if you joined us last month, welcome. This is our collaboration between the Light Center Professional Development Department and the Light Center Library Department. We're very fortunate to have both in our division, and we are very grateful for Ms. Jody Crawford, our Library and Digital Resource Center Coordinator, for kind of helping us to drive forward these offerings. We aim to share at least one article and one app or more monthly in this engaging series as part of our 2024 Professional Development Initiatives. This is an informal gathering of minds. We come here we're coming together to share insights, experiences, and best practices. Your engagement and feedback are what's most important in our time together. Just to give you a little bit of background, we are going to do quick introductions. I always like to jump right into this in case somebody new is joining us and somebody new to me, because I'm still learning everyone on campus. We actually have a huge, as you know, international adjunct faculty or faculty body. Many of you are adjunct, and so when you give our time to join us, we want to make sure that we see you, we hear you, we acknowledge you. Please, you can unmute yourself or you can jump into the chat, share your name, your department, and if you reviewed any of the apps in the Gmail invitation, or were you already familiar with them? Just so you know, for those of you who don't know, my name is Joni Mitchell. I am the Professional Development Specialist in the Professional Development Department in the Light Center. So who is here? Let's take a look. This is I feel like I'm calling attendance here. Tell us about yourselves. Some of you have to not know each other. There's got to be somebody on here who does not know everyone.
Well, in accordance with what Dr. Johnson said, I'm the guy that doesn't do anything.
Why that made me laugh so hard? I'm having a really sleepy Tuesday. We have that recorded. He had admitted it on camera. Yes, no, we totally know that. Absolutely, but we know that. He actually probably knows how to go in and delete the recording or edit the recording himself. So thank you for being here. College of Business represented. Always appreciate it. Dr. Johnson, tell us about yourself. Oh, and did you look at any of the apps, or do you know them?
I've seen some.
Dr. Johnson?
Yeah,
you're next on my screen, so I just.
Yeah, yes. I've seen some of the apps as well. I didn't see the connection with the article as much as because they talked about unplanned interruptions being the hindrances, and the whole idea that you can't plan on unplanned events. So that just seemed rather antithetical.
Thank you. I caught that as well. We're going to talk about that. Let's see, I'm going down the line here. Professor Lang, and again, if you don't want to unmute, if you don't want to be on camera, you are free to add some comments into the chat. Tell us about yourself, name, department. Did you have a chance to look at the apps or the article? Tell us about the article as well, if you had a chance to read that.
Hi, my name is Jamie Lang. I'm still going through the orientation, so I'm really new. But I'm going to be adjunct for a College of Education, and then I work administratively under the CFO's team. But let's see, what were the questions? Oh, I'm not familiar with the apps. I kind of looked them over briefly, and I read the article, which I thought was kind of interesting and having to go back and prioritizing time, but that's it.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll get into it. Let's see here. And who's next on my lineup here? Professor DeVito, Dr. Mafullery, somebody else. If you want to introduce yourself by unmuting, that's great. If not, please do add some notes in the chat. Here we go. Tony DeVito, not to be confused with that little guy in Hollywood. Thank you. COE and COB. I've not reviewed the apps yet. Dr. Amarine said, Economic University of Moscow graduate. Oh, here we go. A little bit about your background. So I'm assuming you're in COB. And for those of you, thank you for reminding me. Actually, it was a nice little reminder. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and link the apps in the chat, the links that we sent out in the calendar invitation. So if you didn't have a chance to take a look at those, you have some links handy there. Would anybody else like to introduce yourself? I just did the first row that showed up on my slide there. All right, I hope to hear more of your thoughts as we continue this hour. And we can, because this is what we're here to do, jump right into the article. Couple of comments, couple of you reached out to me or in the Light Center directly about the articles and the apps. And I appreciated that. If you, let's see, I want to see who's here. It's hard when I'm sharing my screen to see like when it's more than a handful of people. There's no problem. Links are there in the chat. Oh, Cynthia, wonderful to have you here. I didn't see as I scroll over. Yes, College of Engineering, eager to know about the tools today. Thank you. Professor Crow is here, assistant professor of COTE. I've not read the articles, but left time for the unplanned and unexpected in my schedule. Yeah, that's always good to do. Okay. So these are kind of the questions that I was thinking about. I kind of had similar thoughts in terms of the article. It was a very kind of like loose study, loosely written. I think it was really good that it was, you know, kind of looked at a specific field, but it wasn't this kind of in-depth formal, you know, obviously it was formal, it was peer reviewed. But what were your thoughts on the article in general? Some of you have already shared those with me. And then what are some of the common time management challenges that you observe? Oops, this is actually not the right slide, sorry. How did the article resonate with your time management hindrances or practices? Like what stood out to you? Did anything stand out to you from the article, those of you who did have a chance to review it? Oh, thank you. Yes, please keep if you have not typed your little, you know, bio, introduce yourself, please feel feel free to. Yes, Professor Pottinger said, COB, but currently teaching in COTE classes. I taught at Westcliff about 15 years ago, but recently rejoined and added classes at Santa Monica. Oh, welcome back. Looking forward to learning more about the time management tools, and we will definitely get into those. Real life is not always included in these articles. Professor Lipo, do you care to elaborate on that? I like that. Real life.
Another app, another tool is not always needed. There's so many things already included. And when you have, I use 3 different screens. There's windows in each screen with multiple tabs. And there was an article back in 1998 from the New York Times. It was written by someone who does project management and planning, had the PMP designation.
Nice.
And it was entitled Multitasking Makes You Stupid, because as you bounce back and forth, you have to try to remember what it was you were doing. And so, no, I don't need another app. That's just another tab on a window. But when things come at you at light speed, and can't always move over to another app.
True. So what apps do you use now? I think this comes up later on in the slide deck, but
well, I mean, I have Google Calendar, which is synced to everything. So, you know, I get alerts to my phone, to my watch, to the computer. Between everything is scheduled. So life's little emergencies have to be scheduled too. So you have to be able to block out time or move things. But yeah.
Dr. Johnson, you said in the chat, it's rather intuitive, the article, but the idea of managing one's time for unplanned disturbances was weird. Tell us more.
Yeah, it just didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, that, like Dr. Lipo said about the scheduling element, yeah, we need help with the schedule. We're not going to remember our schedules, but how you manage the time that, when you have your unplanned interruptions, when you have something due, that's more of a stress thing than anything else. It's not a time management thing, that you're working on something and something interrupts you, and that the interruptions sometimes, I'll get interrupted by something urgent, I'll get interrupted by something important, and I'll get interrupted by something that's work-wise unimportant, but personal-wise is important, type of thing. And we just, but no, there's no app for that. there's just, I mentioned before we started, I'll share with everybody else that one of the things that when I was doing hiring was, if I had two candidates, and I'll I'd use the example of Dr. Lipo as, he had a 3.9 GPA. He graduated in 5 years, but didn't do any work when he was in school. He just, his parents were extremely wealthy. And then I had Dr. DeVito, who was working. He went to school in 4 years, was working 40 hours a week. He was helping the family with bills. He was doing, and he's already demonstrating multitasking skills. So that multitasking skills and that element of time management, I know that he can do that. Even though his GPA may only be 2.9, I know he could do that. With someone like Dr. Lipo, I have no idea. I mean, he may be, but we have no idea. He hasn't demonstrated that yet. And I would hire that. That's why there's no correspondence with GPA and success after college. But again, I did everything was very kind of anecdotal, the way the article was written. So I didn't see, it's more about how you manage stress than how you manage the time. And that's just different. I mean, that comes with age, that comes with just experience and so forth, about how you manage, how to, as you get older, you realize what's, some of the things that are just not worth stressing about.
I know there's a thing that says there's an app for that, but not always. Yeah. And the best time management plan I've ever, and it just from experience and seeing other people do it, I have blocks of time where, okay, I get interrupted here. I now have this time that's still set aside that I can finish what I was doing.
Right.
But, you have to, even if we look at ourselves like a machine, and I know Professor DeVito calls me that, a machine, but even machines need downtime. And so you have to plan that in. You can't run something 24/7. You have to put fuel in, or you have to clean it or something. So those little blocks of time help. And they actually help better than another tab on another window.
Kind of, not always. No, I love that. I think that I felt a little like, okay, am I giving too many options with 4 apps? But I wanted to make sure that if you're looking for a tool like this, for your own use or with your students, or something you want to try out, something new, or you want to try out something maybe that you've heard about in the industry that you want to introduce to your students, either in like a group project or time management kind of like project, that you have some options, and they are a little bit different, and it is hard when it's you're blocking out time. The article talks about silent hours. So the article, for those of you who didn't read it, it does look at a very much an organizational approach. So it's kind of like how the company helps manage or doesn't help manage their employees' time, and what they contribute. That's what I kind of got out of it, to, you know, what they could do to kind of help their employees. And one of the things they talked about, Professor Leeple just mentioned, silent hours, right? Blocking out some time specifically within the organization where they don't have workflow interruptions. I think as faculty, and certainly our students, they have much more flexibility to create that for themselves if they're aware of it. Right. And that was one of the things that resonated with me in the article, was looking at how do you recognize what's even a workflow interruption? Right. I love that you said, Dr. Johnson, that learning about how to deal with stress and what to worry about, that comes with age, that comes with wisdom. I'm not there yet. I'll let you know that now. There's a lot of things that interrupt, you know, family demands. I work from home. And I think that a lot of times my students feel that as well, right? Especially when they're studying online, or they don't pause and go somewhere to study, you know, if they're not coming to class, if they're not sticking around after class. It's very important to kind of block out some time. And I think that there's recommendations in this article from an organizational perspective that you can do for yourself on a personal level. Does anybody want to face question number 2? You have to like admit out loud. What challenges do you face when it comes to time management? And have you encountered specific hurdles? Or like with practice and wisdom, what kind of hurdles have you overcome? Thinking about this idea of age and knowing where to focus.
I could say, but they might be on the call.
I got it. Professor Davina said, I always ask my students for the first step in the writing process is, and invariably it's time management. Yeah. All of their work, right? Like really all of anything that they miss, anything that, I mean, yes, there are real emergencies that pop up. I don't know about your students, but with mine, it's always those emergencies pop up at the end of the week when the assignments actually due. They don't seem to happen early in the week for some reason. And so it's, you know, even that is a time management issue. Can you complete your work sooner? Can you organize yourself in a way to where you're completing those tasks a little bit earlier? You know, and again, you know, one of the things the article talks about, and I think this relates back to dealing with the stressors. I think they call them, what did they call them? Let me look at my notes. Hindrance stressors, is promoting coping strategies. You know, how, you know, how they, in the article, it talks about that the organization could help the employees adopt, you know, action-based coping, or that employees themselves could as well. And maybe that goes back to a little bit of what you were saying, Dr. Johnson, as far as, you know, choosing to hire that person who has already kind of had some of that and can do that, can handle that in their life. Dr. House said, dissecting terminology, time management is helpful for some. Not everyone really comprehends what it actually means. Interesting. How has that helped you, Dr. Howe? You want to add some more notes in the chat or unmute yourself? How has that helped you to think about time management? Sometimes I use the phrase task management because I feel like I never have enough time. So what is there to manage, right? Like if I manage my tasks, it helps me a little bit. Dr. Johnson, strange how such a high percentage wait until the end before they start starting their assignments. Yeah, that's a thing. Dr. House said it's much more than managing time. Dr. Johnson said, it seems like they cannot perform unless they have stress upon themselves. This is a huge problem for students, right? I've actually had students tell me, like, I'm best when I procrastinate. When I'm under that pressure, that's when you actually get the best out of me. And I'm like, yeah, probably not, but that's how you're managing. And yeah, Professor said, managing life. Oh, no worries, Dr. Howe. She said, I wish I wasn't at work so I could speak. No problem. I appreciate you being here, actually. What about institutional hurdles? I was curious about this, especially you're all faculty here at Westcliff University. Many of you juggle many other demands, whether it be family, research, teaching elsewhere, full-time jobs elsewhere. What are the most significant organizational challenges you face here at Westcliff? Do you have them? Like when it comes to your teaching, the research, trying to complete professional development, administrative responsibilities, department needs. Professor Omarine, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Hello.
Regarding these questions, I met some problems in Westcliff University. Oh,
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
okay. Okay, sorry. I don't know what
That's
happened.
okay.
I don't know what happened. Okay. So we, as you mentioned in the beginning, that we are international university, and we
Yes.
have students from different countries. And really, they are interested in research, interested in knowledge, interested in a lot of things. That's why they are here. They are
Mhm.
watching, this is United States of America. So they are proud to be here also. So we have also to provide them with something, meet their expectations. As I am a person who lived in these countries and lived in different countries also, I suggest to scholarly committee, doctoral scholarly committee program for 16 weeks, for 16 meetings about the sustainable goals in United Nations, sustainable goals of United Nations. And we designed it as to be two parts. As part of the, about the research in this field, the indicators of this field, and about the research activities. What happened? We did first meeting, and I remember Dr. Johnson attended that meeting also, and it was great. A lot of people, a lot of students contacted me. They want to make their to write articles about this issue. So it was a good platform for research. It is clear for the students from developing countries, poor countries, to find a platform to start their research. So a lot of students contacted me and asked the presentation as a, and then some procedures in Westcliff University or bureaucratism or something like that stopped our program. Really, it was very bad action from the Westcliff University. Why you stop this program? It is very valuable program for the students from different developing and poor countries. They were very excited to attend this course. Or, and after that, there is another steps I have for this. So we can complete these 16 meetings. And after that, we have another 2 steps that giving us a new stage, new phases, new knowledge, new skills, something like that. So this is what I found here. This is what I met here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I actually didn't think about that when I was looking at these questions, but I think sometimes we really at any institution within any organization, we have to think about the demands of management. And that came up a little bit in the article as well. The demands of management, the demands of budget. There's a lot of things that impact our students and impact us as educators that has to do with sometimes politics, sometimes budget. Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. And I also appreciate you brought up the cultural overlay of our international campuses, right? They have their particular cultural demands, and then they're also meeting the demands of the Westcliff University program. That can be a lot. Professor Lipo, I see your hand is up. Thank you.
Yeah, and tagging on, there's a cultural element, and there is a benefit to Westcliff being an international organization.
Absolutely.
It's something I learned when I was, again, age, wisdom, or the lack thereof. When I spent time at Mazda corporate when they were in Irvine, and I learned, here in America, if you're sitting there looking at your computer screen but not moving, you're just looking at it, someone's probably likely to pop their head in, tell you to quit daydreaming and get back to work. But in my time there, I learned that if you're looking at your computer, they see that as working. And so being an international entity that we are, there is a lot more, less hurdles, because they understand that people work differently, and reading what's on your computer screen is still work.
Sometimes. This is social media.
Well, then we're talking
I used to work in
about
one of those offices.
non-work and ethics
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
things like that.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the other kind of workflow interruptions that we don't always recognize. That's really true. Like, what is work? What is perceived as work? As we work with students who are in this ever-changing job environment. One of the biggest shifts for me, I've been remote since 2016, and one of the biggest shifts for me was not hours, but projects. Like, yeah, research is work as an academic. Talking to students is work. Sometimes comforting students, sometimes helping students through some of their challenges. You know, you have to have boundaries. I know everybody has different boundaries as far as personal challenges go, but they can, in fact, and research is messy. Absolutely. Yeah, what is, I wrote down, what is work, from what you were saying, and the cultural element there. When we're talking about workflow, sometimes I think in some of the pop culture, pop psychology, we talk about being in flow, feeling good about your work, and turning off notifications, which we'll talk about the apps. Some of them have those features, so it's kind of nice. But sometimes you just got to, be in your computer and yesterday I was chatting with 4 different people while working on a project, and it was all necessary. I don't know. I didn't know how to like turn off some of that. Dr. House said that's a really good icebreaker. What is work, right? Getting our students to think about, okay, what is work? And do you realize you're here for that purpose? So thinking a little bit more about students. Oh, any other thoughts before I go on to the next slide? I love this conversation. Uh-oh. Did I drop? Apologies if my internet's a little bit wonky. Professor DeVito, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of my greatest challenges here at Westcliff is, and don't laugh, but I think it's I think it's balancing the learner as both student and customer. Because on the one hand, and I'm just going to be very transparent here, there are times where I just want to twist their heads off and use them as bowling balls. And then on the other hand, I realize, wait, I need repeat business. So I've got to treat that learner as both the student and the customer. What are your thoughts?
But it's okay when they're in their capstone class with you you don't need them to repeat.
Oh,
but they do. They do.
Professor Lipo said, teach more capstones, so you don't have that problem. Yeah, that's part of, that has been the conversation. I've been in higher ed for a while now, a couple decades, and I remember when I know many of you have been in higher ed much longer, but I'm proud of my couple decades. But I remember when the language started changing to students are our customers and students are our clients, and customer service and, admissions and counseling became student services. And a lot of faculty struggled with that because it is a difficult balance. And, sometimes as educators, we come with that because we know that we want to serve our students. We know that that's a lot of why we're doing what we're doing. But sometimes it's also, we live in this culture in the US anyway, of the customer's always right. And we know that that's not true about our students, unfortunately. But yeah, not the bowling ball, Dr. House said. Dr. Johnson said, managing stress would be better help with managing interruptions. This usually gets easier with age experience as we prioritize. I hope you're right. I'm going to let you know when I get to that age, because I definitely, a lot of what came out in this article for me was prioritization. How are you prioritizing? How are you coping? How are you being honest about that?
if you're talking about unplanned hindrances, you can't schedule those. You can't time manage those. Now, how do you react to them?
Right.
Is different. I mean, that's why I mentioned that.
How do you react?
The hill you want to die on. In that stress of it, how do you manage that? It could be night and day difference. I mean, when my grandkids interrupt me from working, I don't care. I'll interrupt, I'll stop, and so forth. And I'm more relaxed coming back after spending half an hour doing whatever it is I'm doing with them than I would have when I was younger, and even with my own kids. I would still, that I would carry that stress with me, even though I would stop what I was doing, play with the kids. I still carry the stress with me. Not anymore. And we also have a different priority about, as we get older generally, that what is it really worth stressing about at all? I mean, we tend to care less what other people think. And that's why really old people will fart in public, because they don't care. It's just it just and that helps. That helps with as far as the mechanisms, because it was just weird. Like I said, the article started talking about unplanned hindrances and then went into time management, which by definition unplanned is devoid of that. I mean, it's again, it's not something that's why it's unplanned. The rest, as far as the time management skills and so forth, I mean, it's almost like two different, it didn't connect. The whole thing was not written in one cohesive connection. I'm surprised it got published. It wasn't written very well either.
He said, I'm surprised it got published.
Grammatical mistakes.
I did catch a couple things, and I was like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not going to run Grammarly through this. I'm not going to do that. I've done that. Actually, I've been reading articles in journals that actually from ones that I really respect, and I'll see something and then I'll run the Grammarly and I'll be like, I knew I was right about that. But it did tie together for me, because for me, what you're talking about there is boundaries. And I feel like my own time management has been met with, the need to establish boundaries, whether that's with coworkers, whether that's with working from home and having my family, whether that's with my students, whatever the case may be. And so there was that kind of like connection for me, because part of the challenge for me is when those unplanned things come up, knowing where to put them, and knowing being able to say, and the article did talk about this a little bit, having organizational support to say, like, I can't do this right now, Steve or whoever, right? Being able to kind of, put things where they belong, and having that. But if you don't have that, and many of our students are going to be in work situations where they don't have that ability to tell their boss, hey, I'm working on this right now. Okay, I'm seeing lots of stuff in the chat. I just want to make sure I go over here. Ooh, Professor Money said students are consumers, not customers. I like that. Tell us more, please. First of you said, even better. Yes, they aren't getting a service like a haircut or their nails done the way they want. They're consuming information we are giving them and responsible for evaluating. Yeah, they're here for that purpose. Well put. Professor Buddy said, which is problematic too. That was my initial thought. I was like, as a consumer, then yeah, tell us more. I love that. Same with dogs. Rubbing bellies is so stress breaking. Yes, I miss having a doggy at home. Oh my gosh, Professor Money, you actually said what I was going to start off this gathering with, which is this Tuesday has been my Monday, and it's felt like Groundhog Day Monday all morning long. All morning.
I'm feeling it too. So yeah,
definitely. Tell us a little bit more while you're unmiked about this consumer concept, and how does that impact either how you interact with students or even on the time management, how your expectations of them.
I think in some ways it's still problematic. I mean, I understand the drive to portray students or to understand students as customers or consumers. But for me, and I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here, I know that when we see students as customers or consumers, it somewhat distances them, I think, from engaging genuinely with the academic experience. And I think particularly in this day and age post-pandemic, I mean, trying to engage students is taking a lot more work than it did, let's say, like 10 years ago. But it's kind of a really interesting debate. And I know one, my colleagues and I have, like, as a consumer, you're actually using a service as opposed to a customer who's paying for a service. I think that's a whole gray area. So I'm not sure, it feels a little bit disingenuous to debate between that, but I would like to think of our students actually using the services or using the knowledge that we provide as opposed to like paying for it. I don't know. I'm still up in the air about it. So I'm afraid I'm not very helpful here.
No, it is. I love it. We're just here to exchange ideas. I love that. That's actually, I like the idea of using a service because, I don't, you all can tell me how you feel about this. I think this is very interesting. What struck me was thinking about the fact that when you are a consumer, you have the ability to choose that service or not. If you do not like what you have here, it isn't like you have to leave as like an angry customer. Oh, I'm out of here. You know, the customer's always right mentality. But as a consumer, like you can choose that level of, and unfortunately, like you said, the lack of sometimes academic engagement, students choose a lower level of engagement. But you can kind of choose that as a consumer. And this is also off the cuff. I wonder if sometimes if as faculty, it gives us a little bit more balance or opportunity for boundaries because we can say, you are choosing to be here. You are choosing this path to come here and pursue knowledge, to pursue your goals, you know. So I kind of like that. Professor DeVito in the chat said, how do you establish boundaries with massive students with personal problems? Yeah, try teaching in the social sciences. We're very touchy-feely. Yes, I feel like an entertainer over professor sometimes. Absolutely, Dr. Howe. Professor Lipa said, always right there with you. Professor DeVito said, I am the protagonist on an academic stage. I want to screenshot that one. For somebody said, it's a really good point. I feel so ancient, like to think of my students as students, which is more parental, but this creates other time management issues. Right, because if you are, you know, sorry, mommy or daddy, like you kind of got to, you know, we want to be able to guide them. But yeah, you know, oh, gotta let me go ahead and click over to our next slide. I do want to make sure we talk spend a little bit of time talking about our apps. I know some of you don't want another app, but I have to share with you some really cool apps, okay? What are some common time management challenges? We've already touched on this a little bit. How do these challenges affect their academic performance and overall ability to learn? Again, we're going back to, yeah, Professor Sleeper said, never mom or dad, but always uncle. Yes, uncle, can you loan me a little bit more time for my assignment? Can you give me a little bit more? Can you give me another extension? These challenges, these personal challenges, not being able to have boundaries like what Dr. Johnson's talking about, not having that wisdom to be able to carve out that time. And then I'll just go down the questions and I just want to hear your thoughts. Have you implemented any strategies within your courses that help students improve their time management challenges? What are you doing? What role do you think technology plays in either exacerbating or alleviating time management problems for students? Professor Money said you have to be the cool under not too cool though, because that's another boundary. But yes, absolutely.
Technology means you can do more with less so they can wait longer.
Do more. Explain that in what way?
They can do more with less time so they can wait longer to start because the technology will help them.
Ah, that wasn't where my mind went when you said that. Oh, wow. That's true. Yes, we have the AI conversations have to continue, right? Because we have a whole bunch of students who think I can wait till the last minute, throw this into ChatGPT, and spit out my paper, no problem. Yes, Professor DeVito said that's what they're doing. Absolutely, there's more tools to procrastinate versus, and you know, those of you who are here from COTE, please chime in. Like that is kind of, I mean, really all of us have this experience, but you know, isn't that part of technology to make our lives easier, to make it, you know, so that we can get more done sometimes. So how are we helping students with their time management? What happens when the student comes in and says, XYZ, professor, I had XYZ happen over the weekend, which caused this, which is why my paper is not going to be on due, not going to be on time on Friday? Or do you have conversations with your students about time management, or do you just leave it alone because it's sticky? Professor Nishida said, please take an earlier bus to class. Yeah, this is kind of mean. I don't recommend this, please. This is not supported from the PD Light Center. I actually had a professor in college who would keep a bus schedule or two in his drawer. And then if you had time management because of transportations, he would literally give the bus schedule and be like, where do you live? Okay, here. Okay, here. He knew the Sacramento bus schedule very well, and that's what he did to help with that. I don't recommend that though. Dr. House said tech is responsible for obliterating everyone's attention span and their time management, and I will die on this hill. You're not wrong. It certainly has impacted our students' attention span, maybe even our own, and how we teach gets impacted by that, right? Stories about students that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I do want to share one. I work at, like all of us, we make ends meet, got to work in different schools, and I work at a school just like Westcliff. And in that school, gave us the option. They have the option of as long as it's posted, your grading philosophies and so forth. So I thought it was interesting that you're not in my classes. We accept no late papers, none. And we don't have an issue with late papers. Nobody's late because they know it's going to be a 0. So and that reflects work. Because, I know like Jim and I talk about all the time with students that, hey, if you have a class, if you have a project due Thursday, you don't just give it to your boss on Friday, because then you're polishing up your resume. Because that's not just tolerated in the work. You can't just be late.
Sure.
Now, obviously, we use that example also that if you're running late, you tell your boss on Tuesday, can I get an extension, because I'm going to be late. I got these other things that happened. You don't just turn in late stuff. That doesn't happen in the workplace. You're not allowed to do that in the workplace. Why would you be allowed to do that in the classroom? So it's interesting that when we have the hard time on that, again, I just don't have late papers, none, because they know that. They know that there is no late papers. I personally, I also hate the extended days that we get, the multiple. They can submit up to 3 times, so they submit a paper. Oh, my plagiarism's too high, and I can resubmit it, and I hate that too. They don't do that at the other university either. So, but I don't know. It's just that it seems like the more you allow it, just like with children, the more, that, like anything else, they have to have boundaries. Heck, something that we've talked about in the faculty lounge is the fact that getting our students to do the required reading before class is an act of God. They just don't. And what shocks me is even at my bachelor level, when I was a bachelor student, I mean, that it just, you better have done it. Otherwise your teacher could humiliate. I mean, I had it happen one time with me. I got humiliated, and it was the one time I didn't do it, and never happened again. And it's like the more we acquiesce, they're just going to take advantage of it. Part of human nature, I guess. But our students also are there because at least the grad program, they're there because of the visa. They're not there because, if they didn't have to be there, they wouldn't be there. That's our reality.
Have they told you that? You said
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
reality. Have they told you that?
Oh,
wow.
yeah. I had one.
Professor Leach was nodding his head.
Yeah, I was in one of my classes. I asked them, what are you going to do with your doctorate? One student told me, I'm going to fold it up twice and put it my diploma. I'm going to take my diploma, fold it up twice, and put it under my refrigerator to level it. That's what he said in
I'm
class.
sorry. I'm so sorry for
And
laughing about that.
the other students were like, we're here because of the visa. I mean, they were very matter of fact about it. I was shocked and disappointed, but I'm glad they were honest. But that was what their
I appreciate the
comments were.
honesty around this. Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
used to work when I worked in China. I worked with students who were going to boarding school in the UK. They were testing and doing interviews to get into boarding school in the UK, and it's a very elaborate process. It's really intense. It's really competitive. And I was doing an interview prep with one of the students, and she was fantastic, excellent grades, studied like crazy, just practiced, spoke 3 languages. I mean, she was just amazing. And I said, okay, you're going to sit down with the interview, and he's going to ask, he or she, usually a male though, is going to ask you, why do you want to go to school in England or in the UK? And she said, well, what do I say? And I said, well, no, it needs to come from you. It needs to come from you. And she said, okay, I don't really have a reason though. And I said, okay. I said, well, just tell the truth. What's the truth? Right. And she said, so my parents can come and buy a house here and start a business in the UK. And I said, okay, let's work on that answer in a little bit. But I appreciated her honesty. I think sometimes we have to have a realistic look at our own I don't want to say biases because I feel like that's being thrown around the media too much now. Ugh, it's been all over the place. But really, our own understanding of other cultures. I don't want somebody to fold up their degree and put it under their fridge, but I also can kind of understand if there's pressure from back home or pressure from the community or and what that kind of creates in terms of I have to be here for a different reason than maybe the student who is here because this doctorate's going to help them to get a better position at their job or something like that, and they have a different vision for it. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying, like, again, like, and I find it amazing that you have actually built the rapport to where they're actually going to tell you the truth like that, because most students know not to do that, or they think about not doing that. So I think it's actually kind of interesting. I appreciate the story. I'm not gonna lie. Professor Money said students also need structure. I'm finding my post-pandemic students need a lot of structure and help with executive functioning at times. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Professor Crow said, if a student asks for another day before the due date expires, I will extend the due date. It doesn't happen often because in week 1, I show penalties for late work. Yeah. I think being consistent, regardless with what, whatever the late policy is, and we never there's policies in place, and you could always go to your departments and see for sure what you are supposed to be doing in those situations. And maybe there's a little bit of stress from the organization to follow those policies and work with students that way. Oh, we only have a few minutes left. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. You guys talk more. I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
You were talking about the consistency where I know as program chair, it's when a student says, I'm complaining to Dr. Lipo, it's not fair because yes. Dr. Howe gave Joni an extra day off. How come I didn't get an extra day off? That doesn't seem fair. That's and if you're Jim Lipo, you're like, I don't know what to say because I got to investigate it now because I wasn't told about it beforehand or the circumstances. Right. So it's working with the program chairs are much more inclined to say yes on things, but they got to know what's going on.
Yeah,
shoot really them more an email. Else.
Professor Lipo said, I don't know about that, but shoot them an email and make them open another tab and know what's going on. Professor DeVito said, sometimes I have to ask myself, is this class managing me or am I managing this class? Yeah, that is a reality, I think, of being an educator, especially I like the recognition there of post-pandemic.
My first answer is always no. That way I can change my mind. If you say yes, it's too late.
That's true. That's true. I had to learn a long time ago to not be so nice from day one, like to really be firm and be like, this is the policy, this is what it is.
I'll be right out to take care of it.
I'm pretty consistent, but at the same time, like, it's,
Dr. Howe's comment is really
no starts better.
is very
Yes.
accurate.
Whoa, the
In
last
addition,
professor
I
gave
wanna
me an
add something.
extension.
That professors, all the professors have no idea how much they've allowed for other students. In other words, that Jim and I joke about that, where it's like, Professor Lipo said I could have an extra day off of or whatever. I'm like,
Yes.
Jim Lipo at Westcliff, that guy, he said that. But
That's
it's
awesome.
all these things that are promised that I don't even bother with the professors. I don't even contact them because I know it's complete lies.
And that's the time where I usually say, well, tell me the professor's name, the name of the professors who did
Yeah.
that, please, because I now need to have a talk with them. Oh no, I was wrong. They didn't.
I've actually had students tell me professors that I know and they don't realize I know them. And when I go back to that person and say, hey, how'd you pull that off? Because I know that's against department policy. And they're like, I didn't do that. That student just I hate being lied to. Don't lie to me. I'll work with you. I promise. Well, I'm not within reason. A couple more questions here. We don't have much time, but just want to think a little bit about, recommendations from the article. We talked about some of them. How does it connect to you when it comes to time management? And certainly thinking about our apps a little bit. These are the ones that I recommended. I've sent you links: Todoist, Asana, Trello, Google Tasks. I know that Westcliff University uses Monday.com. Monday.com kind of has, when I looked at them, the least free option. So if you do some projects, if you in your department or with the Light Center, and you're putting information or working on projects, project management things or time management things in Monday.com. I didn't add it on here only because it isn't as free, and it's not as functional in my opinion. So these four are actually going to take you far.
If you want a free option, it's very simple.
Are you going to say calendar? Because I'm really
No. Everything we print these days, there's always that one last 3 words on the bottom of a page. I take that, and that's what I write things down on, so it's free.
I laugh, but like these are all this little notepad right here that I've made with my little clip. This is because people in a department that I go to, they this massive recycle pile where people just overprint. I don't really understand it. And so I take them and I write on the backs. I rip them up and make little notebooks and I write on the back. Definitely. I'm a scribble person though. But these are great tools. Todoist is probably one of the most simple if you are looking for something time management or project management that you want to introduce to your students. Asana and Trello, wanted to include those because they are very popular industry-wise. We're always talking about Capri. We're always talking about keeping learning relevant. If you want to do kind of a group project or you want students to be able to log in and manage some boards, Trello's famous for their tiles. I think they call them, they look like sticky notes. You can put a bunch of cards. That's what they're famous for. And being able to kind of look at things a little bit different visually tends to appeal to some of the students. I have used Trello in class before with some projects. It's really fun. The students like it. And I have had students come back and tell me, like, I use that on my job now, or that was something I could put on my resume. And I let my students know, when we use these tools in class or with a project, it's because I want you to be able to use it, in life. Google Tasks obviously integrates very nicely into something you're already using. Google, Gmail, check out the links. I'll go ahead and throw them back in the chat again while I check over here. Let's see, Professor, I got really behind here. Dr. House said, the ones who grant extensions and exceptions, yeah, those last professors. Dr. Johnson said, I've used too much and has become a crutch for higher level managers. Professor Vito said be old school. Professor Money, we need to allow students to have university granted ADA accommodations. That's really important. And accessibility and ADA accommodations are no joke. There's no way around it. Legally, we're required to do so, but granting extensions can be a quagmire. It can create extra work for the professor. Typically, what you get from the student is not as good. You all know this. It's problematic. If you have a policy that you set from the beginning, it really helps. Professor Crow said the course policy says late penalties, the professor's discretion up to Wednesday. After Wednesday, no extension, no exception. Thank you, Professor Crow. Always appreciate your knowledge of our policies. I'm still learning. Dr. Johnson said some at Westcliff use Monday.com as a way of managing their employees. Not made for that, but it's a non-direct way of micromanaging. No comment. And Professor Murray said Google Keep is worth a look too. Yeah, it's really they all integrate quite nicely. I found an article on Google Keep, but the link was problematic. We'll just say that. Before we leave, I want to just take your last couple minutes. Again, we mentioned Capri. As always, please do complete the survey. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you need in terms of support. Tell us what challenges you're facing. We like to have programming around it. And just to share a little bit of our programming that is coming up on the 16th of May. So a couple weeks from now, we're going to be saying goodbye to Spoke and hello Acorn. Please do come take a look at the new LMS. We're very, very happy with it. Those of you who've been in Spoke, you know it's clunky. You know it's problematic. Dr. Johnson, Google Keep is a lot of like notes, but it integrates quite nicely, but it's great for project management as well. Professor Murray, if I'm wrong about that, please do share some links there. Feedback for growth on May 23rd, we're going to have a meeting. We have 2 sessions that day, 8 a.m. and 12 noon. Look out in your Google invitations for that. We're going to be coming together again on the 28th of May. That's our next article and an app. We're going to be looking at AI in the classroom. We're going to start with the basics, but we've got some really great handouts that are coming together, looking at ChatGPT, looking at many of you have requested more on the basics, ChatGPT, Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. We can talk more, but we're going to start with the basics and then we'll get to the bigger AIs. I know there's lots and lots of tools out there. And also on May 30th, we're going to do a 30-minute tip of the month. We're going to be launching that we're going to be talking about incorporating videos into your classroom teaching. If you're not using videos and you want some tips, do come to either the 8 o'clock session or the noon session. Yes. Professor Murray said, yes, notes, list, text. Let's see, I thought I put this, let me. Okay, if you need to hop off, no problem. Please do grab that link for the survey, open it in a new tab, and complete that for me, please. Let's see, survey to the link. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, Spoke. Oh, sorry, for clarity, GAP, aka Moodle, is a Moodle product, is our teaching LMS. For those of you who don't know, Spoke is our learning LMS, our training LMS through the Light Center Professional Development Office. We are leaving Spoke to go to Acorn. Nothing is happening with GAP. All right, any other questions? Thank you everyone for joining. Have a wonderful afternoon. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and just wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. Bye now.